Welcome to another episode of Just More Fix. This is James. With me in this episode is Kurt, Taylor, and Kelsey.
Hello.
Hi, what's up?
You can find us online at justmorefix.com or on Twitter at justmorefix. If you like us, you can support us at patreon.com, and you can give us a rating and review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you find us at. In this episode, we're going to talk about coming to RPGs as adults. And now, it's time to get our gaming fix.
Hi, I'm Stargate Pioneer.
And I'm Steven Jondrew, and we're from Better Podcasting, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network.
Just like the show you're listening to now.
The opinions expressed are those of the individual host.
Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And get ready, because geekiness begins in 3,
2,
1.
Quick warning before we get started on this one. This episode has some audio glitches in it and some odd edits because this wasn't recorded in our normal studio. We were picking up some buzz from an intercom that was active in the room and we didn't realize it. And we also ended up picking up the local radio station through our headphone amplifier. So since we don't own the licensing to that music, we had to make some odd edits to get that out of there. So you may notice some strange cuts in this episode. Also, at the beginning of the episode, there is a plug for our first Indie RPG Day, which went well. But our second Indie RPG Day is coming up now on Free RPG Day, which is June 16th. And we will be at Game in Terre Haute on South 7th Street from 5p to 9p. And we have 3 different games that we're running there, Bedlam Hall, 7th Sea, and Numenera. So if you are in the Terre Haute area and you want to come out and play some games, we hope to see you there. And without any further ado, here is our interview with Taylor and Kelsey. Welcome to Just More Fix. Before we get started today, we have one quick announcement. Is if you live in the Terre Haute area, on May 12th from 1 to 5, we are going to be running some indie RPGs at our new
First annual
friendly
inaugural
inaugural
event.
I think we're going to do something monthly, so if the May 12th date doesn't work for you, there's going to be more to come. And we are going to bring several of our cast members from the podcast down there, and we are going to run some indie RPGs to try and
introduce people to things that aren't owned by Hasbro. Hasbro's great, but
right. So if you're looking for a different experience besides the regular D&D, Pathfinder, classic gaming style stuff, come on out and check us out, and we're going to run some games for you guys.
Sounds good.
So today we are sitting here with
Taylor
and
Kelsey.
So and we're going to talk about how you guys kind of came into tabletop RPGs. You guys didn't have the usual experience of how you guys sort of came into gaming. So
Take it away, Kelsey.
there you go.
All right. Well, I'm Kelsey. I am a teacher of English in high school. And
Do you teach like grammar or do you teach like literature?
No. Well, writing and literature.
Writing.
And I've taught speech and all things communication, really.
Okay. So Kurt introduced you to tabletop RPGs, right?
Right.
But before that, did you have any other experience with gaming, whether that's like board games or video games?
Oh,
or?
Absolutely. So, I grew up in a family that played board games all the time together. Nothing quite like RPG. So, but I liked the social aspect of it. I liked spending time with my family. To me, board gaming was just a way to get together with people and have a good time. So that's like board games. Video games I always played basically with my siblings and whatnot. And I always enjoyed the kind of video games where you kind of immerse yourself, the kind that you create your own character or just kind of go through the story. And that kind of connects with me being interested in English and reading. And I like a good story. I like good characters. That's what I like out of my video games. And so that's kind of when we were approached by, Monica and Kurt and hey, Harry Potter themed RPG tabletop. I was like, I've always really wanted to try a real one. Cause, in high school, I had a group of friends that, they had some like Dungeons and Dragons and I sat in one time, but like the DM was young and maybe not so great. Not bad, but not so great. Kind of still working on how to build a story and whatnot.
Well, storytelling is a craft like anything else.
Right.
And if
so,
you're
they were
18
young.
or 19 years old or something, maybe you don't tell the stories that certain people want to hear.
Exactly.
Right.
So that was my one experience with a tabletop game. And I enjoyed it, but it was always kind of I didn't really go back to it. But
Now, did you find that early seller, did he tell stories, I hate to say this, but that you found to be offensive or just not a lot of fun?
just not a lot of fun.
Okay.
I felt also the group that I was with didn't necessarily.
Where did we stop? You said content of stories. No, it wasn't the content of stories. It's just I didn't like what they were playing. Okay, so then we'll go.
Yeah.
All right. So, So that's a bit of background from you. So Taylor,
Yeah,
you are an English teacher as well.
I am. I also teach literature, but I teach rhetoric, speech, and creative writing as well. So I'm definitely interested in telling stories and how people tell different types of stories. I, like Kelsey, played a lot of video games growing up. I didn't play a lot of board games because my family wasn't really interested. But I did play a lot of video games like on my own. And like Kelsey said, same thing. Like I really liked video games that told really good stories. And I grew up reading Harry Potter. So as soon as Kurt and Monica approached me and said, "Hey, like, let's do this," I was like, absolutely sign me up as soon as you're able to. And so it jumped right in. It's been good.
Right on.
Now, the missing piece here is Monica.
Right.
She moved upstate, but she was the one that I kind of talked into doing it. I don't want to say talked into doing it. It was definitely a soft sell.
Coercion is okay. It's okay.
Because I'm like, I want to try and tell, and James here is part of the regular gaming group, but I want to try, I hate to say it, with people who don't know all my tricks after 10 years. Okay. We have this group where, he knows what I'm going to do.
Right.
I kind of know what he's going to do. And, it was wanted to try a slightly different experience with it. And I think she was the one that actually sold you guys on it.
Yeah.
Well, she approached us so like timidly too. She's like, so, well, you know how Monica is.
Right.
She's like, so if I were to tell you that we were thinking of tabletop Harry Potter theme, and I was like, I am in. I'm so
Right.
in. Yes. And so then after that, she was like, oh, okay, excited.
Right. She like approached us while we were getting ready to watch a school musical. So we were like, so she's like trying to get out the sentence and the lights are dimming. And then she's like, can you, please, like, would you be, and we're like, okay, the musical's starting. So if you could ask us the question, please, like, that'd be great.
And then
I'm sure that was planned and timed. It was like as the lights dropped.
Right.
Do you want to play tabletop RPG with me? Lights out.
And then I was pumped for the rest
Right,
of the musical,
honestly,
thinking about it,
honestly.
honestly. So
Right on. Before we get into all that stuff, I'm just curious, do you guys have a favorite genre of movie or fiction or anything that in terms of like what you enjoy?
yeah, I
mean,
maybe
you
not
mentioned Harry
maybe not one above the other. I guess fantasy and sci-fi, and I am enjoying the horror aspects of what seems to be our next session. Maybe I don't know.
So let me just explain something really quick here. When the intellectual property seemed to be the selling point for this, and the Harry Potter world, if you are one of the 4 people who aren't familiar with the Harry Potter world, is actually a horror universe.
Well, I think it
And
didn't
so-
necessarily, like, I think
To me.
it sort of changed and evolved
Yeah.
Yeah.
as it went, the first book came out, like there's kiddie horror or, like
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
young adult horror, young adult horror,
Yeah.
really. But then as the fan base
Grew up.
grew up and as the characters and the stories grew up, the story had to mature with it. Otherwise, it's like,
It wouldn't really play.
yeah, it would just be terrible. And so I think in terms of the way the progression of the story and the way the grows and ages, that it sort of naturally has to become that. And then they also seems like if it didn't go into a more horror area, the consequences for what Harry was going through would seem cheapened and artificial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think,
Yeah, I agree.
it seems like it, I don't know.
Or kind of WB. You know what I mean? When the
Right.
when the consequences are Johnny breaks up with Sally,
right.
Right. There's no.
there's not as much impact. But what I was just saying is I thought that the intellectual property was obviously the selling point.
How was it sold to you? Do you know what I'm saying? Like when they said, "Hey, like this, the lights are dimming," and you hear, do you want to play table RPG with me?
You want to go to the librarian's house and play pretend?
Right? Yeah.
That sounds creepy and no.
But like beyond that moment right there, how was it sold to you guys?
I don't remember it being sold much differently than that ever. Like, I think that was enough to sell me. I was like, yeah, let's go. Because I had always been interested in doing some sort of like tabletop experience. And I love Harry Potter. So it was instantly like that made sense to me. Mm-hmm. And it was like, it was almost maybe, I guess, sold almost as like a homework project, because at that point, like once we, right, like once we,
She's really good at homework.
right,
You don't
I'm really good at
understand.
homework, but as soon as we had decided, we're like, so the first homework assignment was like to get a kind of a character in your mind, and so we kind of started to think about that, and it was like I was really enjoying it, and then Monica actually printed off the entire wiki of spells and was like, you need to memorize these now, and I was like, and so like we were like,
It seemed a little intense.
we were coming into like English teacher meetings, like quizzing each other on the spells, like, hey, do you remember this one? Like, what does this one do? And so I think honestly,
Leviosa, one word or two.
right. I think at that point, like I was pretty much like already sold. Like it was a pretty easy sell for me. But
you always laugh at that being sold like that. You want to go to the librarian's house and play pretend, but like to me, that was like, yes, I would
Right.
love to act like a little kid again
Right.
and use my imagination to have some fun. And also, I think what made a big difference for me too was that social aspect. You know, I live far from my family now, so I don't get to sit down and play like board
Right.
games or anything with people. So that's been really good for me, I think. So
Right on, right on. Before that, so Monica was the first person that you sold this to?
Yes.
Now, is she an English teacher as well?
yes.
All right.
Well, and
Hey, no-
so what it was is we were trying to do To Kill a Mockingbird in Minecraft. Okay.
Oh, God.
And so we had an environment built. We were going to test it. We made this wonderful, boring location where there was nothing to do but go around and talk to people, and they gave you stock pieces of text from the novel. It was fantastic. But
That sounds painful to me.
well, it was supposed to really communicate the boringness of Maycomb County. It was
Okay.
really, I mean, and it drove it home because there was no fun. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
It was a game with no fun.
Right. Okay.
And so we got talking about these kinds of things, and somehow it came about because I had a stack of RPG books on my desk.
Mhm.
And what are those?
Okay.
And that's kind of how it got started. And she's a relatively huge Harry Potter nerd.
she's
Yes,
probably
absolutely.
kind of next level.
definitely beyond me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
Yeah. She's
I'm gonna say we're equal because I'll be
Yeah.
offended if I say anything else.
She's not here. She can't defend herself.
Right,
It's okay.
honestly. So
And she was familiar with fan fiction. And when I said, so imagine a collaborative fan fiction where you sit around the table, I provide a lot of the environment, but it changes with the characters and you're not you. Because that was I think one of our first questions. Are you you? And I'm like, no, you're somebody else. You're a fictional character and you play them as a fictional character. So you want to be a biker gang leader, we'll roll with that.
Right.
And she's like, oh, there was this sort of mind moment where she went, well, how do we do it? And I said, well, we need 2 more friends.
Right.
To really make it work. And so
Enter us.
right.
those were the 2.
If it hadn't been the Harry Potter as the skin that goes over the top of it, do you guys think you still would have taken the plunge, so to speak?
It's okay to say no. I won't be
Well,
offended.
this is the thing is, like,
I think if it had to have been something that was common with all of us. I think the reason why it worked so well is because the 3 of us had that, and we weren't just all going in blindly, but we had something that we knew. But yeah, I think for me, I probably would have said yes still.
See, I wouldn't have known. I
Yeah.
honestly
Right.
wouldn't have known.
Well, because for me, like the role-playing game, I could do this in any world because my draw to something like this is more about building a character and character development. Like I love that. Like that's what I love about literature is just characters. I would love to create any character in any world.
Okay.
I think I would have probably been more apprehensive because I would have just been scared that I was gonna like mess it up. But because I'm not I would be that person. But because I do know the Harry Potter universe pretty well, so I felt like I was going in with some background knowledge. I found out since then I was wrong, but there's a lot of things I do not know about everything. I think that if I hadn't known the background knowledge that I went into it with, I would have been apprehensive. But I think I could have been convinced otherwise.
Right on. It's just something that's interesting because, like, when you sell a game to someone, generally it's the skin of the game, how you sell it, because that's the piece that you engage with more. So I was just curious to see if it was Harry Potter alone or if – because part of the idea would be is to say as an adult you're thinking about getting into RPGs. So how is it that it kind of drew you guys in who didn't have any – maybe had some gaming experience and all this, but had never actually sat down to a tabletop RPG before.
I'll tell you one thing that was wonderful about having 3 Harry Potter fans around the table for a Harry Potter game you don't have to explain the world.
Right.
Okay, in point of fact, for the first couple of games, I took my cue from how things were going to work from you guys. Okay, your standards and expectations about how you thought the world was going to work. Half of that mad scribbling was they believe this is how the world works. And then everything after that, I try to keep it internally consistent, and you gave you enough rope to hang yourselves in some cases. But, and that's the fun part, at least to me. But allowing the players, especially if they know the intellectual property, to be able to take the lead in, okay, so these are your expectations. Great. You're just not going to have to live with them now.
So the mechanics that you guys used for the game was Fate, right?
Fate Core, yeah.
So did you guys find it, I don't know what the right word would be, easy or hard to engage with it? Because it's a pretty, in terms of like tabletop game, that's a pretty clean, straightforward, more narrative-focused thing. Did you find that? Well, I guess I don't really have a comparison to
Let's just say they have no other comparison. We didn't start with D&D first edition. You know what I mean?
So did you find it? Did you find it to be engaging with the mechanics obstructive to the story? Because I guess if you're used to reading stories and coming at this, I guess, from more of a story creation and literature perspective, right? There are things that just happen narratively because that's how it's supposed to go, right? That's how the progression of things is supposed to go. But sometimes dice just don't cooperate, and then you have this, sort of terrible tragedy that develops into a bigger thing.
But sometimes they do.
Well,
That's true.
Level 14.
Plus 14. Absolutely.
So did you find it that engaging with the mechanics like sort of took you out of the moment, or
No, I didn't find that at all.
Well, there's the time that Kelsey's character almost died if it weren't for Katie, who's not here, having one fate point left to save the character's life. I mean, to me, I didn't know it was going to happen. I'm like, if she dies, what happens next? I'm like, please think about this for 5 more seconds. I need to think about what's going to happen because it's a realistic thing that this character might just, now she's crossed over.
That's one of the nice things about Fate is having the fate points. It gives you some agency in the story to say, while the dice may not have cooperated with me here, I can still have agency over the world.
I will say, though, that with the fate points, it is interesting because you kind of start trying to like hoard them. So like you have to like make decisions at some point. Can you spend them, or maybe something else is coming down the line that you want to like keep these points for?
Well, and
you don't know.
The one thing I've discovered is the optional compel. Like you can compel characters, but I'll hold up one. I'll go, "Do you want to?" And they're like, "Oh," and I'll go, "No, wait." Here's 2.
It's kind of interesting to see people's strategies because some people they hoard them, and that's how was my experience initially. And then I realized at a certain point, like I don't get to take these, carry them over. They're usually from session to session. So I'm like, I'm just
now we did a change. We carry them over from clean the thing, but I don't use refresh.
Okay.
So you end with 0, you start with 0.
Right. Okay.
So I think that seemed to have been the most popular with the group. But we've kind of
right on.
Kind of house ruled it there a little bit. The Fate Police aren't going to be by for me. It says expressly in the rules that you get to do what works at the table.
It doesn't matter. You bought the game. It's yours. Do what you want. Well, it's not like a designer's going to be like banging on your door being like, you did not do this as written. So if you don't like it, well, tough balls, I guess.
Tough dice.
All right. So, in terms of playing and how the story goes, did you find that having a better understanding of, well, I guess I'm making an assumption here. So being literature teachers and this kind of stuff, you understand, I'm assuming that you understand like story structure and like how 3-act structure and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So did you find that having that base knowledge helped you sort of progress through the story? Like, did understanding that guide decisions that you made, like we're clearly moving towards a climax right here, or no?
I think.
Or did you intentionally be like, I'm breaking it?
Kurt's pretty good at throwing those curveballs. Yeah. So I think after the first couple times, I'm like, I'm going to stop trying to figure out.
I think what's different about it is that there's a lot of different narratives happening at the same time. And so it's more like, and I guess this is how it's structured. It's more like a choose your own adventure type of deal where it's like, we have like a list of 7 things at any given time. Like we need to deal with these 7 issues. And so there's no real indication that we're hitting a climax on any of them until like we're already in it. So I don't think like that my background knowledge and like story structure has helped or hindered necessarily. It's just I'm along for the ride because I don't know what's coming. I don't know when that big moment's going to happen. I just have to let it happen, I guess.
Yeah, same. I agree.
Really? Because that's funny because I tried to, with that building, that rising tension, the build, there's a climax where there's a resolution and then there's the afterwards, but I guess it's not obvious from the outside. And it's like with the
it is after the fact.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's
Okay.
it's a good
I was about to
thing.
be very disappointed. I was like,
No, it is after the fact, but it's a good thing though, because if I were sitting there and I was here comes the big moment, it wouldn't. I mean, there have been several times where we've been sitting around the table and Taylor's almost in tears, like
Right.
because of what's
There was one time I
happened.
actually did cry. Like let's not mince words.
So
I did.
those are good moments. Those are I wouldn't necessarily want to know or overanalyze the situation or the story.
I have to say, Monica's first character died. That was actually pretty good. That was
Yeah.
that was a good one. Everybody
Yeah.
was just.
I'm all about killing people. It's well, I guess for me, we had character death and stuff at the table, but when I finally read the first George Martin book when it first came out, and he just kills everybody,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, these consequences actually matter. Because when you watch movies, you're like, oh, this guy's never like, oh, he's really
Plot
in
immunity.
danger,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so much danger. No, he's not. But
Right.
when you read some of Martin's stuff, oh, this dude's head just fell off. That's like,
And it's so abrupt too.
Yes.
It's so abrupt.
And
he
so,
kills people hard.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And I guess once internalizing that story, I was like, oh, I guess I never realized how you can increase the consequences and how much decisions actually matter when character death is actually on the table. And
Well,
then the first time you see it happen, you're like, oh.
Well, and that was actually the thing with Kelsey's character was literally one point. If you don't make this, this is done, and everybody's getting ready. Basically, everyone else in the party is getting ready to kill the possessed character. Okay, because they're winding up. I can tell they're like, all right, here it comes. And Katie, one of the other players, she just whips out that last fate point I didn't even see. In my brain, quite literally, I have 50 or 60 options rolling through my head. I'm like, okay, how's this going to have to end? Because it can branch so many different ways at that moment. But yeah, character death needs to be a real thing, which is why I gave you the opportunity to kill your character.
Well,
You're doing a very nice job, by the way.
It's cool because when it makes sense in terms of fiction, some of my favorite moments in stories are those moments where characters in the books, they make decisions that they know are leading to a moment of self-sacrifice or these truly terrible decisions that you just can't see your way out of, but you have to keep marching forward because that's what has to happen. Seeing that come to life at the table is part of the magic of playing pretend at the librarian's house. So,
Right.
True.
But I'm just glad it's obvious. Getting back to the point, I'm just glad it's obvious in after. Oh, well, this was
Right.
what was
Oh,
happening.
absolutely.
Because I
Yeah,
tried to
yeah,
use
yeah,
literary illusions and everything else to.
So do you think that it happens maybe that you don't notice it as much in the moment because you're so caught up in the moment of the story as opposed to being more reflective about how structures and mechanics of things work?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
I'm definitely like an immersion gamer. Like
Right
I
on.
like to immerse myself and really just be there.
Very cool. I guess the next looming question is this game can't go on forever, right?
Right.
So do you see that when this game comes to its finality or conclusion or whatever, do you guys plan to continue to play tabletop games?
I would hope so.
Yeah, I would really
Yeah.
like to.
I think now, yeah, gosh, it has been almost a year.
Yeah,
Gee,
May
like in
29th. May 29th was the first game.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine not continuing or finding another. I mean, if not us, someone else.
Right.
I have to.
So
I have to find someone else out there.
Would it still have to be Harry Potter? I know you mentioned before that isn't necessarily the ultimate selling point for you, but do you think that you would be more interested or less interested in something Harry Potter?
I've actually done like a one-shot one with some of my friends when I went to visit them in Austin, Texas, and that one was a lot of fun. That one was based on that was his own original work, and that was really. So I would definitely like to continue. I don't
Was
think
that
that
Fate as well, or
no, I don't even know what system he was using. I did
Okay,
not.
it's all
I
good.
did not know.
tell me
But
what dice to roll? It's all good.
Right.
Has this been in the last year or?
yes, that was,
so you came in all prepared. You were like,
This was last summer. So
Oh, okay.
I had like at that point I think we'd had 2 sessions of the Harry Potter one, and so we did that one as well. So I would like to continue. I might be apprehensive. I might feel nervous, but I think I would like to continue. I really enjoy it.
Right on. Having played this Harry Potter game for a year, kind of along the same lines, do you think that you would rather play something that's not necessarily Harry Potter based to sort of refresh your creative batteries? Do you know what I'm saying? So, like, no one wants to read the same book over and over again.
Prefer?
Yeah.
I don't really know. I don't. Yeah, I think I think I'd like to try something different. But I do really like our Harry Potter
I really
world.
do.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like I like the Harry Potter world. But if we end and that's it, and curtains close and happy ending or not, then yeah.
well, what are the 2 ways stories can end, right? weddings and funerals.
Yeah.
Well, it's just
Well,
one of
we've
those
already
things.
had one. We almost had another.
I just think in terms of when we sit down to play games, there are games that I really enjoy and worlds that I really enjoy. But at a certain point, I need a break from this and I want to do something else because you can only play in that same world for so long. Let's do something different thematically or whatever, and then come back to it again.
We've kind of, though, branched out a little bit. I think Kurt's done a really good job at extending the Harry Potter world. Like, we've done things, or he's added things that maybe that work well paired with like the wizarding world and whatnot, but have been kind of fantasy that didn't necessarily show up in the Harry Potter series. Right. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's been extended already. I feel like I've had some experience already outside of just Harry Potter.
So a little behind the curtains here, I tried to have, for the first half of the year we were playing, it was action adventure. Okay. It definitely, I wanted to have a high adventure, swashbuckling feel. In the second half of the year, as the stakes, especially after that first character died and some other things came into the character's possession, I feel like the screws have been turning down every game session. The mood has gotten darker, I think, over the last 3 or 4 months. And so we were definitely in like a horror vein now.
Yeah, more like psychological too. Recently it's been a lot of stuff happening like in our own minds almost. Like and it's been really like it's just been a different feel. Like we're not going out and we're still going out and doing a lot of adventure stuff, but like a lot of the conflict is coming like from within ourselves. And so it's definitely had a really big I've definitely felt that mood change in especially the last couple sessions.
I definitely enjoy the sessions too that have a lot of like the social combat a little bit. Like I really enjoyed those.
Yeah, that required a whole reworking to try and make that a bit more of okay, we roll this and we're done.
Were there certain expectations you had when you sat down, having not played any kind of tabletop games before, when you sat down, were there certain expectations that you had about what it was going to be?
I was surprised at how do I want to put this?
Blunt.
I guess how much agency we did have. Like I said, I grew up with a family. We had board games. We played Clue and clear set rules.
It's on rails.
And so like going into this and sitting down and realizing that this was all, we controlled this together surprised me. It was also something I had to kind of get used to, and it was great. I mean, like I enjoy that. I enjoy that immensely.
Okay. I think I would say the exact same thing actually. Because there's been a lot of times where, like for instance, my character is really fond of magical creatures, and so anytime a magical creature has appeared, it's always been like, okay, so how do you deal with this? What's the rule with dealing with dragons? Or like, what's the rule with dealing with goblins? And I'm like, I don't know. It's like, well, now you better find out in about 5 minutes.
I asked her, I'm like, so how do you deal with a dragon?
Right.
She's like, I'm like, well, you better think of something because there's a dragon, because what you say is true.
That was all something that we all had to get used to, because there were so many moments like that where we were just kind of like,
right.
Like,
and so it's like,
so
I think that's been the biggest surprise to me, is because I guess I didn't expect that was going to happen. And so I've still never prepared for it, but
That's not true.
I really am not, honestly. But I feel like that I do like having that agency, and I like being able to come up with some things like that. And we've had to do that, like where our characters do research, and so we've reported out on what our research is, or we filled in the gaps that Kurt gives us some information, like now you fill in the rest. And so I think that was the biggest surprise, because I didn't expect to be having to do that much, I guess. Yeah, so much.
But your homework is amazing.
Yeah, the homework too, I guess.
The homework is fun.
Okay, and that's the other thing that I've introduced in the last, I think, month is the downtime action. I don't know if I've come out and expressly said that they're downtime actions, but I've been dropping, what do you do in this? Or I've been dropping hints and clues, mostly in the forms of disturbing animated, GIFs or GIFs, however you want to call it. Yeah.
I love it. I love the downtime action thing. We always freak out.
And
I'm texting Taylor, Kurt just sent me something. Save me.
But for this last one, we all got sent like an artifact of some sort, I think, because Kurt won't let us tell each other. And so Kelsey and I have been saying, okay, we have a secret and we can't tell each other. So what do we do? Because we usually like collaborate like on our downtime action a little bit, or like share what we're working on. And like we haven't been able to do that this time around, which again ties back to that like psychological stuff. Like we're all feeling real isolated right now.
I love it.
So it's messing me up. Messing me up.
So how often do you guys sit down to actually play then at the table?
Once a month.
It's been regular once a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so there's a fair amount of time to build tension and things between games then.
I need time to write because I'm telling you what, this stuff doesn't come as quick as it used to. I'm getting old.
I think months go by quick though.
Yeah.
Like a month. I can't, like, what is it in a week?
25th.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right on.
It's 28th.
Or 28th? Sorry, 28th.
28.
Look,
bad.
I haven't, like, I'm really, like, counting down the days, all right? Like, don't do this to me.
So do you guys think that at this point you guys would, I guess, run your own game? Has that been
I've
something
thought
that's
about
your question
that.
mark?
Yeah, I've thought about that, but Kurt's just been really good at making everything so complex. I'm like, man, mapping that out.
So
But I've thought about that. And I think that would be so much fun.
it's really not that hard.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly less hard than what you probably think it is. It's more about
Don't
you say something,
that.
and then I go,
Taking away my aura.
How could I make this worse or harder or more complicated? And then that's what you do. And then,
Right.
like, generally speaking, I mean, me and Kurt's, how we sort of approach how we build games and stories is pretty different. But fundamentally, it's the same thing, though, where it's
You come up with stuff, and then people do things, and then the players break
Yeah.
whatever plot you've written, and then you readjust your expectations
I
of what's
don't
going to
write
happen.
plots anymore, though.
You gotta. How do you know without a meta framework in the background? Okay, sorry. This is another episode. We thought about this for like
Well,
what,
no, it's just I think that in terms of writing, there's like off the cuff and plotters.
okay.
Once upon a time, I was definitely a plotter, and I had to like kind of scripting out is a poor way to put it, but that's sort of one of the ways I did it. Right. But then as time has gone by, and just different games I've played in different designs, it has changed how I do that. Also, time and
people probably have a really good way of blasting through what you've planned.
Yeah.
I feel like there have been a couple moments where we've done something and Kurt's just been like,
Crinkle paper.
Right.
all right, and snack time.
right. So what has happened now for me is that I sit down and I think about these are your characters that you have in the story, and these are the things that are happening in the world, and then how do those two things collide as opposed to sort of writing out what I think is going to happen. I just have a vision of this is the threat you guys are facing and what are they going to do.
I'm actually relative. We've grown closer in the sense that I have characters that have their own motivations, and
Right.
they're going off in this direction. They will continue to go off in that direction until the player characters stop
Right.
them. So if you never stop them, this is where they're going
Right.
to end up taking over the world.
Well, I can answer that question, I guess, a little bit in terms of whether I'd run my own. I don't know, but I've been
really
right,
Answer that
but-
question with a non-answer.
if I was like, I think first, if I was going to run my own, because like I said, I do teach creative writing, and so I have considered bringing something like this to my creative writing class, like having them build, having them build a character, and then like have to think of those like being faced with situations.
I
and
know a
having
guy who could
impromptu-
help with that. Anyway, sorry.
Right.
My bad.
So I've been,
Yeah.
and like this is the first time I've taught creative writing is this year. So I don't have a lot under my belt yet for it, but that's something that I have been considering the more that we do the Harry Potter stuff is how could I bring this into the classroom? How can I get those high school age students engaged in something like this to maybe inspire them to like keep going with things like this and continue to tell stories in a different way than what's traditional, like writing, like physically writing like a short story or physically writing a poem. How can you also tell stories in a different medium? And I think that would be a really cool idea to bring to them.
There are a couple guys, they're in Canada, I think in Toronto, and they're affiliated with one of the museums in Toronto, and they do things with classrooms where you come in and you see whatever this exhibit is, and then they have an RPG that coincides with that. Where you,
That's cool.
there's one
That's
that
really cool.
they actually just put out a game.
Why am I just hearing about this now? Why have you been holding back?
I've talked about it a whole bunch.
That would be so
Absolutely.
fun.
So a field trip
So-
too.
Okay, I'm obviously bad at paying attention. Okay.
Now it's
Eliminate the
more.
cruise. Now we're going to
Right.
Canada.
Now we're going to Canada. So
They approach it more from the historical aspect of it as opposed to like the
That would
creative
be
writing
so
and literature.
cool, though.
But the one that they have is the World War I experience in Canada is drastically different than what ours is because they're a Commonwealth and they're compelled
They're
to go.
earlier, yeah.
but they have to go.
Yeah.
They're compelled to go by England. And the Canadian experience of the war is drastically different than the English or the French or the German experience of World War I. And they actually have a game that's built by them. It's a Powered by the Apocalypse game that's built about specifically.
Yeah, that's a punishing system. It's good for World War I.
It's about the experience of World War I, and not just the actual combat and the war aspect, the entire experience of it, which is really cool.
I also co-teach history. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really awesome.
I know a guy who used to be a world history teacher too, so remind me to contact him.
So there's just a lot of cool,
That's so cool.
ways that I guess this is as tabletop gaming gets bigger and creeps into different parts of people's lives. And
It's like
then
strawberries.
we grow up and get real jobs and become actual adults. You sort of want to bring the things that you enjoy to what you do as a career or whatever. So there's lots of places that are doing it. So it's very cool.
So anyway, so just moving forward, I didn't know that. I would love to play in one of your games.
Are there any specific things that coming to this as more or less an adult, or as an adult, all of us can really be channeling our inner child to play imagination, whatever. Is there anything that you, any insight or anything that you, about starting into this and playing games?
That you'd give for people just trying it for the first time.
That want to either start their own gaming group or
they're RPG curious.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. Like that was me. Like again, that's I'm just a nervous person in general. So I was scared going into it. And I was nervous, and I was afraid I was gonna like ruin something. But that's not how it works. Like everybody brings their own unique like experiences and talents and expectations, and like as long as those things like combine well, and they usually do, I think it goes fine. So like there's no reason to be scared or apprehensive about it. As long as you go in there and it's something you care about, like the people will support you, like support what you lack, and there's no reason to be upset about it.
Unless they suck, in which you shouldn't game with them.
Right.
Yeah. then you find out and you're like, I need new friends.
Right.
I think you got to be open. I think you got to be open to, I don't know, criticism, but also just be easygoing. Don't take yourself too seriously. I think that RPG people that go in taking, but don't take yourself so seriously. Don't go in and think that you're going to create this invincible character and be the best and everything like that. Just go in and
well, that's sort of why Superman is boring.
Right, exactly. And
he's a terrible character.
Exactly.
No one cares.
So, like, going in and just being open-minded about there being no really set rules, and there's not really a clear finish line necessarily, and just having fun. It's all just about socializing, telling a story, having a good time. It's different than your board game, and don't be scared. I like that too.
Right on. Well, that's something we came back to from the very first episode. Is if everyone around the table is having fun, then you're doing it
right.
And that's sort of what a lot of this, I guess, all comes down to. So, right on. Well, do you have anything else? Or
no, I don't. Thank you very much.
So, I want to thank you guys for sitting down with us today and
thanks for having us,
sharing the insight that you guys have, because it's kind of interesting how people come to gaming from such different places and different times, and it's awesome to hear because we just want to hope other people get to the table, I guess.
That's right. It's about getting them. It's about getting people to the table.
Right on. All right. Well,
quick Gonna Geek promo for Better Podcasting, episode 134, Podcasting Without a Computer. Ever been in a situation that you wish you could podcast without using a traditional computer, like laptops and desktops? In this episode, Stephen and SP run down a variety of different ways that you can podcast and ways that they have podcasted in these situations. Check out this and more on this week's Better Podcasting. And you can find them on the Gonna Geek Network. That's Better Podcasting, episode 134.
Thank you again, and I guess we will see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening. This has been an episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at Incompetech.com. You can support us at Patreon.com/JustOneMoreFix or follow us on Twitter at JustOneMoreFix.